Preston Leinenbach with Otters TV, joined by Evansville Otters Clubhouse manager Ben Garrett. Once again, he joined us in our last virtual game as well a couple weeks back. Talked about some of his experiences and memories and in Sim Hartsfield as well. But this time we want to talk to Ben about his experiences with this normally an end of the season, postseason push, and also the postseason success and recent history for the Otters. So Ben, once again, I appreciate the time. I know it's a very valuable and very limited with your busy day now with school starting back up.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Preston. I appreciate the call. And, yeah, it's been a little hectic right now with school getting back in order. But, hey, it is what it is, and we're just kind of making do here at school.
So as I mentioned, I mean, you've been with the Otters for pretty much this entire recent streak of appearing in the postseason and qualifying in 2015 as well. But that's a whole nother story, of course. But for you, what has been some of your favorite, takeaways and memories of this recent success of the Otters organization and what it means to you in your role with the team?
Yeah, so the Otters, kind of when I began back in 2010, they were a franchise that didn't win a lot. Our top win totals were 30, 40 wins. We typically had a losing season those first 2 or 3, 4 seasons. So it's really meant a lot. It's a big credit to Andy McCauley and the Otters staff and players. And in my opinion, there's really no better manager in the league than himself. The fact that he's kind of built this program from what he inherited it to where it's at now, it's incredible. And it really means a lot to work for a winning team. Things are a lot better around the ball field. Things are just kind of a little more patient. Things are a little more calm. I mean, you have a lot more enjoyable experiences when the team's winning and whenever it's at an all-time high right now like it is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Everything's better when winning games and obviously getting that chance to go for a championship for sure, speaking from my own experience as well. But for you in particular, I mean, obviously, it's a grind during the baseball season. Pretty much every day there's something going on. But when they get to this end of the season where, hopefully they're popping champagne bottles and whatnot, does that make it all worthwhile for you in your opinion as well?
Preston, that's everything. That's the end of the goal, and that's special. So end of the season for me, I mean, cleaning uniforms up, cleaning the clubhouse up, and essentially you're cleaning up after 6 months of use, 7 months of use, and you're putting everything back away. And it's a lot of work. It's a grind, getting everything put back together and getting it ready for the following season. But just that one evening after a game, whenever you've clinched a postseason spot or whenever you've won a championship or won a first round of a playoff, that one night where you're sitting there popping champagne, you're celebrating with the players, the coaches, everything they've worked so hard for, and just kind of watching their expressions on everything. That's their life right there. And the fact that you're able to celebrate and kind of just enjoy the moment, that's everything. There is no greater feeling than being in a clubhouse, having champagne poured on you, and just kind of enjoying all the highs of the season. It's incredible. There's no words to express it.
And as you kind of alluded to earlier, at the beginning of the last decade now, and at the beginning of Andy McCauley's tenure, obviously it was a lot of turnover, trying to rebuild the organization in terms of the performance on the field. So with the most recent success of the team, I know obviously Andy McCauley's mentioned the stability of a roster with a lot of good veteran leaders who come back year in and year out to kind of help lead the team. But from your eyes, when you do get to watch the games here and there, I know you're busy during the games as well. What other keys to the success of the team do you attribute for the Otters?
So the biggest thing in my opinion is the chemistry. The chemistry on the field and off the field as well. They have to be able to play together well. They have to be able to communicate on the field, but they also have to be able to communicate off the field as well. And I think that's what's helped make the Otters so special over the last 4 or 5 years, is because the guys Andy have brought in, they bought into the system. They're guys that have enjoyed playing at Evansville. They have fought for one another. And they're guys, when they're in the clubhouse, they joke, they laugh, they have a good time. They play cards together. They do what they can to kind of stay loose. And if you can stay loose in the clubhouse, you can enjoy each other's company. You don't mind maybe, hey, on an off day, going over and getting something to eat at a guy's house after grilling out. That's half the battle right there, because you have to enjoy who you're spending a season with. These are guys that you're spending time with for essentially 7-8 months out of the year, and you're spending every day in a locker room with them, on a bus, traveling, on a baseball field. So these are essentially your home away from home, and just the fact that they can mesh real well, they're very cohesive together. that right there, in my opinion, is just kind of the biggest battle right there. Just having that team chemistry and being able to play and work well together as a whole.
Being one of the standards in the Frontier League, it's so tough in any sport to either win consecutive championships or even make consecutive postseason appearances and have consecutive winning seasons. And luckily enough for the Evansville fans, their Otters team has done that the last few years. I'm trying to think off the top of my head across the Frontier League how many teams in recent history have kind of come close to being at that same level. I know last couple of seasons Florence has been really good. River City's had some good years in recent memory as well. Washington, but really it's so tough to do even in the Frontier League to do that, and the Otters have been able to achieve that very, very well. And what's so also another thing about with the Otters and what makes their journey pretty tough is, and you know this as well, at the beginning of the season when the Boston Field is also as a host site for high school baseball, a lot of those games are on the road. So it's sometimes a grind at the beginning part of the season. Of course, every year, every team has their ups and downs, winning streaks, losing streaks. But yet this team always seems to find a way to bounce back at the end of the season and make their way into the postseason.
And Preston, you're incredibly right on that, because MLB this year, with them being cut down to 60 games, they've kind of got a little bit of a feel for the Frontier League. I mean, we played in the 90s every single year, give or take with some rainouts. That's not 162 games. You're exactly right. At the beginning of the season, you got to start hot and you got to finish strong. So you might have a couple losing series in there where you maybe lose 2 out of 3, or you might get swept. But you cannot make that a habit. You can't be consecutive with those. You've got to really hold it together from start to finish. And, yeah, right when you break camp and you're out of spring training, that very first series, you got to hit the ground running and you got to play your best ball if you're going to have any shot at getting to the postseason.
Yeah, and going back to the point you made earlier about the chemistry as well, and as our fans know, roster turnover is a very common thing during the season. I mean, to build the best roster possible for end of the year. And I think I counted after last year, obviously it starts out with an active 24 on opening day. I believe 16 of those 24 were still on the roster at the end of the season. And that's a pretty good mark right there. Yep. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Benny, as well, is, like I said, you've been a part of this stretch and a lot more champagne celebrations than I have. Is what have been some of your favorite memories about the recent years with the team getting to the postseason and playing winning baseball?
Probably one of my favorite memories was, I mean, and this is going to be kind of cliche like a lot of people say, but 2016 was really special. That was my first year when I was clubhouse manager by myself. I kind of took over the reins from Sam Hartsfield. I was alone. I didn't really have anybody to run to ask questions or any guidance. Obviously, the coaching staff was incredibly helpful. If I had any questions, they would help steer me in the right direction. But Sammy was always there kind of as that lead mentor, that lead figure, and I was by myself. So the fact that we were able to advance as far as we did and then have the end result that we did, 2016 was special. You really kind of saw all your work come together and you got to see everything kind of fall into place for the players and coaches. And it just made the whole season worthwhile. And kind of on a side note with that, kind of on first, the 2014 season. At the time, I was still a bat boy. That was the first time I've ever witnessed a champagne celebration in Otters history. You see them on TV, and you see guys got bottles in their hands, and they're spraying champagne and alcoholic beverages around, but you don't understand what that is and the meaning behind all of that. You might on TV think, that's going to be a mess for whoever's got to clean it up. But there is so much more poured out into that. So the emotions that are running so much higher in the clubhouse, just the grind that everybody's put through and the work they've gone through. That celebration in 2014, that's up there, because that was my first time, and I got to see the coaching staff for the very first time get to do that. I got to see that core group of guys do that for the first time. You see everything come together, and it's just great to kind of watch the guys after all their successes get that opportunity.
Yeah, and with 2014, that was the first postseason berth for the Otters that year, in the wild card game, so to speak, since that 2006 championship season. So there had been a long drought for the Otters organization until that 2014 season. Came up short in the wild card game that year, but that was just the start of this recent streak. And like again, last year in 2019, the Otters won their first division title in over 2 decades. But yet in 2016, they got in as the wild card team. They got hot and they went on that magical run. So what do you remember about that magical run itself? Some of the, like I said, the attributes about, like I said, the run that was put together by the team on the field, and what went well for that team that year.
In 2016, me and some of the other Bat Boys, we always kind of talk like, hey, what was the best team ever that we've worked with? 16's always up there. It's always one of the tops in the conversations. We had a great pitching staff that year. It's actually kind of funny to think about, if I'm thinking of the year correctly, with the pitching staff that we started with in 2016, our number 3 to 4 guy in the rotation was our ace at the end of the season. And that was because we had such great pitchers, they were getting picked up and they were going into affiliated baseball. The lineup, untouchable. We had guys like John Schultz. Josh Allen had an MVP season that year, played incredible baseball. Chris really picked up some key pieces that season to kind of carry on that tradition. But I really remember that in that season in May, we started off really hot. The Otters did really well in the very first month. And then in June and July, things kind of, I don't want to say slowed down, but we weren't on as much fire as what we were. August hit, and it's like a flip switch. The guys kicked it into second gear, and they were a team that never died. I know you hear that a lot in baseball, but they were a team that season where it seemed like once the seventh inning hit, it didn't matter if we were losing the game or not. The guys found a way to come back. They found a way to get themselves out of a hole, and they just really played together as a great unit. And they did so down the stretch. And kind of as things built on, they get into the playoffs. We faced, I believe it was Joliet the first round. Something clicked. The pitching staff pitched really well. Hunter Ackerman, our starting pitcher, he was dealing. Randy McCurry, the closer, didn't ever blow a save. The offense on games that we won, it seemed like it was a high-scoring affair each time. They played good baseball. They were the hottest team at the time, and to their credit, they won an incredible postseason. So,
yeah, and like you mentioned, there's obviously that experienced core group that was there in 2016. And you mentioned kind of how they just kept grinding in games. Late innings, just kept fighting until the end. I mean, I feel like that's still something that's been instilled in the teams the last 2 years as well, 2018 and 2019 as well.
They were a team they didn't stop until the final out was recorded. And Preston, that's special in a ball club. If you get a team that's down by 5 runs in the third inning, some teams, they just roll over and you see the attitudes completely shift. But Andy and his coaching staff, they've done a fantastic job. They've kept that mindset and that attitude in these guys that, hey, we're in this until that final out's recorded in the 9th inning. And it's clearly been shown because the guys have done a great job responding, and they've done a great job coming back from some games and get some real nice wins out of it. Yeah,
you kind of alluded to Hunter Ackerman earlier. He wasn't the top of the rotation guy at the beginning of the season, but obviously he had that pivotal Game 5, 1-0 win, 7 shutout innings. For you, does that go down as one of the all-time pitching memories from your time at the Otters?
So, Preston, funny story actually. The Game 5 of the 2016 championship series. So this is a make or break game. Otters win, we win the whole thing. Otters lose, season's over with. I did not watch a single pitch of that game, and it was not designed by choice. I was busy that game. I had something going on every single inning, and I was kicking myself because looking back on it, you find out we win an incredible game 1-0, and I didn't see any of it. So game's going on. I've got my list of things I'm trying to get done. Keep in mind, I've got to have a clubhouse ready to pop champagne, whether it be our clubhouse, River City's clubhouse. Preston, whenever the score is 1-0, it's really hard to decide what club is getting tarped so they can pop champagne. It gets your anxiety going. But anyhow, we're up 1-0 thanks to Rolando Gomez's his single, scores Real Pedre, and Ackerman's pitching is out of nowhere, and I believe it was later in the game, about 7th, 8th inning. I'm pretty late. Otters have a 1-0 lead, so I start tarping the Otters clubhouse because, hey, we've only got 2 innings left. I cannot risk having neither clubhouse tarped. I'm listening to the radio in the clubhouse as I'm tarping, and all I can remember is there is a deep hit to center field. I lost the game on the radio. For any fan that was there and any fan that remembers, Chris Sweeney made by far one of the greatest catches in Otters history. Would have loved to have seen it, but the fact that they had men in scoring position, I lost the game. I had no idea if this deep hit was a home run. I had no idea if this deep hit was going to score runs. I'm going off the crowd now. I hear a loud roar of people. Thank God he caught the ball. The rest of it's history. I finished tarping the clubhouse, and, hey, the Otters ended up popping champagne. But that was one of the craziest games that I've ever had to work, just because I didn't know what was going on. And with the circumstances given, somebody had to be tarped, and somebody was going to have a great night, and somebody was unfortunately going home sad. I mean, just that's the nature of the game.
Until you mentioned, that makes a lot of sense. I had never thought about that you had to be ready for both clubhouses, because that was the winner take all game, and that was it either way. So I know you don't have much time left here, Benny, but real quick, I do obviously hopefully the Otters can continue their postseason success streak, and whenever baseball does return, hopefully it's next year in 2021 at Boston Field. But real quick, I do want to get your impressions now, a few weeks into the MLB season, what you've thought of how that's gone so far, obviously the new rules and the way things have played out so far.
Kind of as a baseball fan in general, I'm kind of disappointed, I guess, in the direction they're going. I'm more old school. I really don't like the designated hitter. I like the strategy that's involved in the game, making the pitcher bat, because ultimately 6th, 7th, 8th inning, you've got a pinch hit for the pitcher. You're kind of then, do we do the double switch or not? Again, it kind of builds on the strategy. Lefty, does the guy come in? I mean, you just never know the situation in a baseball game, and it's hard to kind of tell. So, and I know this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, because I know the Otters use it in our league, but extra innings, starting a guy on second base, it's tough. Baseball's not really meant to be a game that's played on a time. It's something that, hey, we all know when we sign up and we go watch it, it's a game that it goes on till it's over. So I think we're just kind of finding the easy way out with trying to get a game over with by putting a guy straight on second base to start extra innings. So I'm not the commissioner, so I can't really decide it. I'm still going to watch baseball. I love it to death. I'm really hoping my son plays when he gets older. But no, I mean, it's still a great game, so nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of people as well, based the postseason picture based on winning percentage, because obviously the Marlins, the Cardinals, the teams that were affected, they're trying to play catch up, and right now based on winning percentage, they would be in, not just by the number of games that they've played. So, well, Benny, I really do appreciate the time. I know it's a very, very tight schedule for you, but I do appreciate you kind of going down memory lane and talking about the postseason success, and especially 2016 with me.
Thank you, Preston. I appreciate you having me. It's great to relive that season.
For Ben Garrett, Evansville Otters Clubhouse Manager, I'm Preston Leinenbach. This has been Otters TV.